Hello, everyone, and welcome to this latest edition of the Fireside with Founders and Leaders podcast. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Stewart Reynolds, who is currently COO and co-founder of Shopblocks. Quite simply, Shopblocks build e-commerce platforms for enterprise-level businesses as well as small and medium companies too. Using a low-code platform, they can really help do things quickly and cost-effectively. So, Stuart talks to me all about how he got involved in becoming an entrepreneur, first and foremost, then stepping into his hiring process, looking at how they do things differently, how things have changed, how he's adapted through different investment rounds, and looking at what's next for them as a business moving forwards and what's next for the e-commerce world as well. Some really insightful information in this one, especially around hiring processes, things that people could be doing differently to really help them and their businesses. So I hope you enjoy, sit back and check it out. Hello, Stuart. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rupert. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. So look, thank you very much for giving up your time and joining today. I'll jump straight in as I always do and just ask you to give a brief overview as to how you got to where you are today with Shopblocks. You've been going as a business for close to sort of 6 years, I think, from everything that I can see. Starting off in sort of some sales roles, and I believe you and your co-founder know each other from sort of very early childhood days. So I'll let you talk more about that. But yeah, tell us a brief history of you in the workplace, Stuart.
Yeah, no worries. So, Stewart Reynolds, and I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Shopblocks, kind of Manchester, Stockport based. We're an e-commerce platform. My co-founder is Kevin Jones, and if we're totally honest, he's the clever one, and he's the real founder, is how I would normally say it. Kev and I were first introduced when we were 4 years old. So we started at primary school together, and then we went right the way through school together and kind of kept in touch. We both moved to Manchester at the same time. Briefly lived together for 3 months before he got married. And so, yeah, we've always been super close. Kev's always been a tech wizard, really. It's interesting. We were just looking into this the other day because we're both born 1982. So we were saying, are we millennials or where are we? And there's a new thing called Zennials that has come out. And it's the very first people who are like digital immigrants. We're the youngest digital immigrants out there. So we had part of our childhood was analog, and then the next part was digital. And so like in the kind of mid 90s, Kev was one of the first people building websites as like a 12 or 13 year old. So we've always had a really good relationship. I actually sold our first website aged 14 to our school. So our secondary school didn't have a website. I said we should, and I said that Kev would build it for them, and Kev coded it all in God knows on what platform back in those days, and we sold it. So we got £300 off the school, and I basically sold Kev's time, and then here we are, 25 years later, still building and selling websites. So yeah,
you thought we should start a business.
Well, that's it, and I think that the dynamic for Kev and I, because we've known each other for so long. You go through all sorts of times and on the journey when you're building a business, and having two of you to kind of bounce off each other or actually pick each other up when there's difficult moments, I think it's really, really, really useful. So Kev had built the tech, had the idea initially, had kept me abreast of what he was doing. And then when it got to the point of going out and raising investment to take the product to market, that's when I joined officially. I'd been doing some work unofficially in the background. And joined. He brought me in to kind of build out the sales and marketing function and help build the business itself. So that was just coming up to 6 years.
Nice, very good. And especially, you say that Kev is obviously the brains behind it, but you certainly need the brawn as well as the brains in terms of going out there to go and get the customers. And that was your job, right? Coming into it, he had the idea, he had built the tech, but you needed to go out and help them go and get some customers. Because when you joined, they were at the stage of zero. So you've obviously been able to go out and take it a long way.
Yeah, so I think when I officially joined, we had a handful of customers, and we just got a 300,000 equity investment in at that point to kind of build out the sales and marketing function. With hindsight, that's not much money. You think it is at the time, but then you learn. But yeah, my job was, we had this amazing piece of technology that Kevin built, and I had to just find like where we were going to fit in the market. And so we had to do loads of like quite low cost, low investment outreach to try and identify like who could we work with. And at that point, genuinely, Rupert, we would take on all comers, and we have literally built websites for like everything and everyone, from virtually free websites for amateur sports clubs right the way up to, we now look after Toshiba in America, and everything in between. And I guess those early years, it's all about testing and learning, right? There's a lot of website platforms, there's a lot of e-commerce platforms, and it was about like working out where we fit in the market and where we would get the most bang for buck in terms of like finding and identifying the right target market for us to really focus on. So the first 3 or 4 years, like classic, you read something like Good to Great as a book or something like that, and they say it takes 4 years to identify your hedgehog moment, right? That bit which is like, this is the, and as long as you can identify it and you can focus on it, then you get this opportunity to accelerate that growth. And it literally took us 4 years to identify it, working on the tech throughout. And yeah, you go through, while you're doing that, taking a company from 0 customers and 0 revenue up above $1 million ARR. All in the background, you're trying to build a business, build a company. You realize that nobody's given you a playbook, and actually all the things that need to happen behind the scenes, somebody's got to do them, you know? It's like, who's loading the dishwasher tonight? That kind of stuff's real. And so, yeah, there's a lot of plates to spin. And I guess while we were going through it, was just kind of trying to identify who we were and making sure that we kind of, every so often, you can take an holistic view and make sure that you're not just kind of going down the wrong path. And yeah, and that's kind of it. Took it from 0, probably took us about 5 years. I thought it would take us 1 or 2, and it took us 5. So that's another lesson learned, I would say.
And you mentioned sort of the hedgehog moment. So what was that hedgehog moment for you?
Yeah, I think so. Every meeting we went into from the early days, the bigger opportunities, it felt to me, there was always this thing that people were asking for, which we called linked accounts. And it was people who have an online shop, but actually they want to run multiple brands, or they've got resellers, or they want to create an ecosystem, not just one. And every meeting we'd come out of, it'd be like, they need linked accounts. And so after about a year of hearing this idea, because no other platform really did it, I said to Kev, you've got to build it. And so Kev went away and reimagined the way the tech was built. And probably just over 2 years ago, we launched linked accounts, the first version of it. And at that exact same time, the world had just changed. If you think back, we're talking coming out of COVID, recession about to start or close to. You had the war in Ukraine kicked off, and you had Martin Lewis telling the world to cling on to their money, right? That's what was happening.
Yeah.
At that point, we were very focused on micro SME. We'd closed around about 4 or 5 months prior to that, where we'd really gone into targeting lots and lots and lots of SME. And what we realized very quickly at that point, it was like, hang on a minute, these SMEs, they're not wanting to spend, they're not really sticking. Suddenly the world's changed, and that disposable income really mattered to these kind of back bedroom dreamers, right? And so at that point, luckily for us at that point, linked accounts had just launched, which was a completely different market. And you're talking like way bigger cost and kind of target audience. So at that point, we actually took a really, really tough decision. Kev and I took a few days out, looked at the numbers and said, right, this SME play that we're going down, it isn't working. And we need to kind of reverse out of it. But we're fortunate we found this thing that we think is the future of this company. So it was a really tough period. We had to reshape the sales and marketing function, had to reshape all of the business plan and the financial model, and then go out there and prove that we could sell to mid-market and enterprise. So we'd built the business up selling to thousands of micro SME. And then all of a sudden it was like, right, stop that. You now need to go and find, I don't know, £100 million turnover business and kind of walk into those opportunities with a straight face. And yeah, fortunately, the things that we believed were right, that's definitely certainly seems to be coming true. We've been able to onboard about 25 enterprise clients, as we class them.
Nice.
Much bigger businesses, and with far greater challenges than what the SMEs had, but linked accounts has certainly solved it.
Nice. And it's one of those things, once you go to that sort of enterprise level, I say different challenges, as you say, but you're dealing with the same business that has the same challenges, rather than dealing with multiple people who all have their own different challenges, different intricacies, which is the challenge of working with some of the SMEs, I'd
I think
imagine.
you sound like you've been chatting to our customer success team, Rupert. Our original business model, the original plan, when Kev brought me in alongside him, he said we need 10,000 customers paying us £100 a month. That was the kind of outline. And then we've just flipped it on its head. It's like, no, now we need 100 customers paying us £10,000. And it was like that's the switch that you're dealing with. And actually what you realize is that onboarding an enterprise client weirdly seems easier than an SME one. They've got teams to support when you need design or data support. They're there, and they're just geared up to kind of run projects. And so even though the projects are way meatier, way more challenging, if you speak to our team internally, they'll say, actually, these are a pleasure compared to trying to onboard 100 SMEs. So that's been transformative. And you know, if you look at the traction on our recurring revenue and all that good stuff that goes through the platform, it's a massive difference. And so glad we got there at the right time and we're able to identify it.
Everyone happier. Ultimately, having dealt with many SMEs, and look, SMEs are the lifeblood of certainly the business world and a lot of the stuff in the UK and actually globally. I think a lot of the smaller businesses, but there's a lot to be said for being able to get more from less ultimately, if that makes sense.
I think you're right. Like we couldn't have gone straight into a mid-market play anyway. Like you have to be able to prove yourself. And actually all of those early learnings about the challenges of trying to onboard and support thousands of small businesses, that forced us to really look at our processes and the team members and how we manage things, and the kind of, I don't know, the tone and the momentum that we put into each project. Being able to take all of those learnings and then apply that into a market where you're getting paid a bit more to do similar work, that's been massive for us, right? And without it, you just don't get anywhere. So no, we've always loved, like, we still have a massive SME base, and we haven't no intention of stopping that. It's like they're still a really important part of our company. I'm probably more proud of a couple of the smaller businesses that we look after and their success than I am of some of the big names that we've now got on board. And so we take them super seriously still. And actually, if an SME gets in touch with us, we still work with them. It's like all it is that we looked at the numbers in terms of investing in your sales and marketing effort. It was like, well, actually, let's make sure the sales and marketing spend goes into this mid-market and up. But if somebody gets in touch with us today and they want an online store or a website, we'll always look at each project and see what we can do.
And so, other than having a talented friend who could build the tech, what got you into entrepreneurship? What was the motivation behind sort of jumping into being a founder?
I would say I'm naturally disruptive. If you were to speak to anybody who's worked with me, managers, my old teachers, my parents, probably my wife, they would say that I'm naturally disruptive. And not in a bad way, but I just kind of I kind of enjoy chaos a little bit, and I mentioned before the call started that I'm a Carlisle United fan, right? I support a lower league kind of rubbish football team, but I like that. I like being the little guy and taking on the big guy. It's always been my way, I guess. So I'm naturally disruptive. I've always enjoyed. Like, nothing drives me more, and this might be a bad thing, I don't know, but nothing drives me personally more than proving people wrong. I like to be able to do things that other people don't think are possible. I'm always super proud of achieving stuff that's kind of a bit out of the normal, and I guess that really suits a startup life. I love stats, and I enjoy building things. I've always kind of seen myself as quite a leader from a young age. I was captain of teams I was in, and maybe not the most naturally gifted, but always I enjoy that kind of leadership, and competition is always something I've really enjoyed. And I'm not massive when it comes to red tape and things. I guess that's I've worked in big companies, and it's like, to me, I don't know. I think sometimes in bigger companies you can kind of get in your own way a little bit in terms of what are we actually trying to achieve, and I worked in a council briefly, and that was all I needed to know, that like that wasn't for me.
But that was painful.
Yeah, well, super painful. It was my mum forced me to take the job. She worked there. But incredibly, my mum left school and joined the council and then retired from the council. She worked every single day for Cumbria County
Wow.
Council, her entire working life. And they got her a £200 gift at the end of that. And that was kind of like, that's probably
Thanks for
it for
coming.
me, Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
So, no,
Yeah.
so for me, I kind of enjoy building things, and that kind of, I suppose, naturally disruptive. So it's kind of lends itself quite well to start up.
And you talked about sort of leadership being one of your sort of attributes, qualities, if you like, and something that you like doing. So in terms of your leadership style, my understanding, again, you've got quite a traditional sort of leadership style, like to lead from the front, being present in amongst the people that you're working with. Talk to me a bit more about how you like to lead.
Yeah, and I guess allied to the fact that when you're building a startup, right, you haven't got huge swathes of cash in the bank. So you're like, we had to hire like young people or inexperienced people. Typically, we weren't in a position to be able to go and bring in super experienced team members. So what was crucial to us was being able to kind of identify people based on attitude, and then look to train them and work with them really closely to get them up to speed. And that's always been the way that we do it. Like I'd like to think I'm a mentor to a lot of the team that I've worked with. Like, I don't know, like I mentioned before, we had a difficult period where we had to kind of reshape the sales and marketing function. So we went from a team of 12 to a team of 4. I let 8 of my sales team go on one day, and it was a really, really difficult day. They were friends, right? They were all good. It wasn't like any of them had done a poor job. And so I had to have that you've got to take a difficult decision sometimes. And so that day they were let go, but within 2 weeks, each of them I'd helped find new positions. I'd contacted other contacts of mine around the area and helped them get placed into. And I think every one of them ended up joining a place where they made more money as a start point.
Yeah. Nice.
Interesting. Yeah, I suppose interestingly, after that, it was my 40th birthday, and I was having a big kind of party, and every single one of them came to my party. So it was like, I don't know. So like, in terms of being a mentor or being somebody that people look up to, I'd like to think I've got that good relationship and work quite closely with young or inexperienced people to help them progress their career. You don't always get it right. I'm quite sure there'll be some people who'll hear this who'll have a difference of opinion, but I don't know, you've got to do what's right for everyone, and try your best to, like, we don't have offices in this building. It's like I sit in the middle of the team. I'm always available. Try and have a chat with people over a brew, or try to be human, really, because you spend a lot of time at work, Rupert, and it's really important to find something you like with people you love. That's how I see it. And and actually, I tell every single person who starts here on their first day, one day one of us is going to leave, right? We're all going to leave one day. None of us will be here forever. And it's about trying to make sure you make the most of the time while you're here and take your career seriously. And that's a big part of how we try to identify the right people to come in. And then if you get that attitude right, then typically you'll get a good end result.
Exactly that. And look, people do leave jobs. They do leave companies. We should. Something that actually someone said to me the other day was that we should be building companies to work around, to work for us as humans, rather than us working for the companies. And I was like, I really like that. That's so true. Like, often we build a business we come and work for the business. Bullshit. We should be making the business work for us. Ultimately,
I think you see people online, like your classic influencers in business, Gary Vee and people like that. They're always saying it, like they work for their team, not the other way around. Hierarchical charts always the wrong way around for me as well, and it's kind of right. Like I'm only one part. We're 30 people roughly. It's like I'm one part of that, and I can't be everywhere. And therefore, like, what you've got to do is find great people and then trust them, give them the tools, and then give them the autonomy to kind of get on with the job and trust them to do it. And that way you can progress way, way quicker if everybody's kind of got that same capacity and that same trust.
Absolutely. And we've touched upon it there already, because you talked about hiring based on attitude over aptitude. And so your approach to recruitment is tends to be sort of hiring people at entry type level. I know you've been involved in lots of like early apprentice schemes, kickstart schemes, things like that. So talk to us a bit more about your recruitment process, because it's perhaps slightly outside of a lot of normal recruitment processes in the tech world, where a lot of people hire top level seniors because they think they need senior people with loads of experience, which often isn't actually the case. So yeah, talk to us a bit more about what you do.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, right? That like we've tried hiring more senior people to come into the team, and it tends to disrupt the business rather than support it. You end up in this weird position where people feel they know more than the person coming in. So wherever possible at Shopblocks, we've always looked to promote from within. So it's like, you're quite right, we've always had to look at entry level positions in terms of the people we hire, but then we're constantly working with those individuals to help them progress. And there are people within our team who've had 6 or 7 promotions in the last 4 years. There are, we're always looking to progress the people here first. In terms of that recruitment, like in the early days, that's where we were. We had to look for, what government support could we get, or, we're using Indeed predominantly to find people.
Yeah.
And what we were finding was it was kind of more luck than good judgment whether we were getting great hires. It was all down to who'd interviewed, but nobody was interviewing in a consistent way. And we actually read a book called The A Method for Hire. I think it's called Who, The A Method for Hiring, by Jeff Smart and Randy Street. And we read it, and it all just kind of resonated. And we thought, okay, this is something we can repeat, so every team member can follow the same process. And that has been transformational in terms of our recruitment. So even just the telephone interview, you do a 10-minute telephone screening using the method that's described in the book, and it's like a truth serum. You'd be amazed by question 4 on that telephone screening interview. You just know the truth, and you can from that point, just off a 10-minute call, if somebody's got the right attitude, if they've got that right background to progress. And so that's been massive for us. Being able to do that. And then look, as we've moved on and we're obviously getting bigger as a business, we are now able to go out and recruit more experienced talent, right? And so we now have we've got a customer success team that deal with implementations and managing enterprise accounts. And it's like you need a certain level of authority to be able to do that job. So we've been able to go out, and we're slowly but surely we're being able to kind of compete with market rates and start to attract that type of talent into the right positions. So it's, I suppose over time you develop, you grow up a little bit as a company.
And look, I love talking about interviews. I'm so sad. I can't believe I've just said that. I love talking about interviews, but it is my day job, obviously, outside of being a sort of a amateur podcast host, I'll probably say. So talk to me about, I'm intrigued about this technique then, that, as you say, gives people the truth serum, because I think a lot of people could learn from this, and it's where companies tend to fall down is in their interview processes, because there's not normally there's not a training manual for interviewing. Often people that are doing interviewing, that are bringing people in at management level, they're thrown into it and go, here's some CVs or resumes, go and speak to these people. That's it. So talk to me a bit more about your process.
Yeah, and so we go through, it's 2 stages. Ultimately, we have a telephone screener and then a face-to-face, and there's a structure. So we do actually have a document that we share with the team leaders who will follow the questions and the way that we manage those 2 stages. There's another key part to it as well. Within that document, we also put the tips and tricks. So like within each question, there's certain questions which people always struggle with. And it's like, well, how do you tease the information we need out of them? There's other bits as well, which is to do with the language or the tone that you use when you are interviewing. Some people say it's a bit like a police interview, which maybe is not a great thing. But people who come through it, I think, for a reason. And so that first stage, we do 4 simple questions. What are your career goals currently? Tell me all the great things about you. Where we're looking for 8 to 10 things, and they can be anything. Flipping that on its head. What are you not so good at, or maybe what don't you enjoy so much in a work environment? And you look for 3 to 5 kind of. We don't call them negatives, but we're looking for 3 to 5 things which are not their passion or things they don't enjoy. And then the final question, and how it's worded, is crucial. We say, further down the process, we'll speak to people to get references about what you were like back then. What do you think? I want to know the name of your last 5 managers and what you think they will rate you out of 10 when I speak to them.
Yeah, it's a great one. Actually, we use something similar in ours to say, what would your if I went and spoke to your last manager, what would they say about you?
Yeah.
And then we flip it and say, okay, now if I went and spoke to some of your friends, what would they say about you?
Yeah,
and trying to see the difference in the answers, and it's a really interesting sort of question stack, and I can see the psychology and why it helps. But the important bit of that, I think, to mention is that you have a process and you stick to a process, so you can compare apples with apples, and that's what often people don't do. They go on gut feeling, which sometimes you have to trust your gut to a degree. But if you've got a process and you can stick to it, then you can compare people like for like all the way through. That's how you can really make sure you're finding the right people for your business.
It's about consistency, isn't it? And like I said before, I actually really enjoy recruitment. I'd do it all day, every day. I love identifying people to come and join the company. Bear in mind, recruitment flips on its head. Once you've decided they're great, you've then got to sell them wanting to come and work with you. And so like that's a big part of it as well. But I can't be on every one of the interviews. It's not possible. And so finding a way that the team can be consistent just means that everyone's got that same chance to identify good talent and bring them in. And it's proved to be really successful. Like if I was to fill in that question myself, I've looked at it myself. So, well, how would I come across? And the reality is when you're asking for people for what's good and what's bad and how people would view them previously, there aren't any wrong answers. Like all I want is this. I just want people who can articulate the answers, who understand the question, and their story makes sense. Right? It's like life isn't always a bed of roses, and you're never going to have 100% where you're perfect and everyone loves you. You wouldn't be moving, you wouldn't be changing. It's like, so there isn't a wrong answer. Being able to be honest and to explain the story and that story to make sense, that's what you're really looking for. The answers, all right, you don't want, like it'd be a bit of a red flag if somebody said, every single person who's ever worked with me would give me a 0. That's probably not somebody you want to hire.
Yeah.
But as long as there's the odd 9 or 10 in there, you can work with that.
Exactly.
It proves to be really successful. Some people, certainly people who are a bit more experienced, find it a bit strange, and we've had some negative feedback when we've been trying to recruit for more senior hires. We've had some negative feedback into recruiters saying that they thought it was weird and this, that, and the other. But you can't please everyone all the time.
No, and look, those people weren't necessarily right for your business. They'd be right for somewhere else, because they're going to come into your environment and go, this isn't for me, and this is not what I'm used to.
Such a crucial point, and I say this all the time, is that you're dead right. It's like this is also that part where you're like identifying people. If they don't like the way that we do this, they're probably not going to like everything else. And I say at the very outset of any face-to-face interview, it's a two-way street. We're trying to identify a good fit for us, but also they need to find somewhere that's good for them. The career's important. They should take it seriously.
100%.
So and I think you're right. We're just trying to help identify where those two parts both match.
And that's what it's all about. And obviously, you've gone through some changes with the business. You've had a few investment rounds in the last sort of 5 years, which whenever you have an investment round, it changes the shape of the business, because you've then got investors that you're reporting into. So you say, a bit like me, you're unmanageable to a degree in terms of that's why you're there doing what you do, but you have to be then in that position whereby you're not being managed by investors, but you have stakeholders who effectively you report into. So how have you adjusted with that sort of challenge?
Yeah, and I think they're all good points. I think you wear many caps, and I think it's just really important to be able to kind of identify which cap you've got to have on at the time. And and the point you mentioned at the start, we've been through 5 relatively small investment rounds, and they're getting slowly bigger, but we've done it via lots of little cuts, which can be quite a painful way. And so what you end up through that is that you end up bringing on like different types of investor at different stages, but they all are now shareholders. And so that shareholder and stakeholder management, you've got different people with different, I guess, like different outcomes they're looking for at different timeframes, and trying to manage all of that can be challenging. And like with hindsight, if I was to look back, if I speak to Kev as well, I think we both agree. It's like when we first started out, we took on the first kind of investment from Dow Schofield Watts. We probably saw board meetings as a bit of a box ticking exercise, and we just wanted to be able to get on with what we did. And maybe that was an error back then. Maybe we could have taken the board makeup as simple things like the initial chairman we had was the person who put a bit of money in, rather than looking for non-exec directors who had like world experience who we could fall on kind of something would have made a big difference. So in the early stages, we maybe didn't take it as seriously as we might have done, in terms of like making sure we had really good support around the table. Often we'd be sat there in the early days, and Kev and I were the most experienced people in the room to make a decision. And it's like, well, so it's like you have no one to bounce off then. It's like, if you want to say, well, what do we do next with e-commerce? It's like, well, only Kev and I have got that real life experience. And so trying to find people who've got real experience, who can act. You need to have your feet held to the fire. That's really important from a board, for a board to function well. But also find people who've got that relevant experience. And the bit you mentioned about disruption and not being manageable, like that for me actually comes down to when I've got people I work with or I know who I can see have done it, have got that experience, have had that success, then there's an immediate respect that I will show to people. And maybe where I've struggled is if people haven't been through the journey but have got an opinion. It's like, well, hang on, we're maybe more experienced than you are to do that. And so I think now where we've got to as a company, we've actually managed to trim down the number of people on our board invites, because it was getting kind of schizophrenic at one point. I think at one point we had 16 people on a board invite, and we're a tiny company. We've now got back down to a couple of. We've got 3 observers, which two of the most recent investors, who are Mercia and Greater Manchester Combined Authority, plus Dow Schofield Watts is still an observer on behalf of a lot of the old earlier stage investors that we had. And then we've got our chairman and an NED who's now become our CEO, Matt Smith, who's working with us just 2 days a week. So that makeup's really good. It's helped us kind of get some. Like people like Craig Slater, our chairman, lots of tech experience running businesses, building businesses, exiting businesses. So, we've got the right blend around the table, I'd say, for the first time probably ever, in terms of a functional, supportive, but also, questioning board. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's right to have, again, it's having those sort of foundations in place, having the structure, and as you said, having your feet held to the fire just enough so that it's hot, but you don't get burnt ultimately. And I think that's a crucial thing of being able to take it from where you are now to the next stage of the growth.
It's a weird part, because I'm a shareholder, Kev's a shareholder, and ultimately we're all in this to kind of build something exciting and to enjoy the journey, right? We're not just about the destination. You've got to enjoy what you're doing day in, day out. But also, what's useful there is that you've got people who are coming in purely from a shareholder point of view. And for Kev and I, who are in here living and breathing it every day, having other shareholders to remind you about that factor, like to keep you honest on that part, because actually what's going to end up being good for them will end up being good for all shareholders. And so you can't, and maybe I've been guilty of this in the past, of taking things a bit too personally about what we're doing day in, day out. But actually, if you look at it holistically and say, well, actually, we're all shareholders. We all need to work. And if the shareholders are seeing things that we could be doing better to improve, then we should probably listen to them.
100%. And look, what does the future look like for Shopblocks then? Sort of where do you go over the next sort of 12, 24 months?
Yeah, I think I guess in the next 12 months, we'll end up doing a kind of a Series A round or an investment round of some form. There's going to be another event will happen at some point in the not too distant future, and what that looks like is TBC. I think probably by the end of the summer we'll be putting together like where we've got to and where we think we're going to take things for the next stage. Like I mentioned earlier, it's my first target is to win 100 enterprise clients. I think if we can win 100 enterprise clients, implement them, learn from that, that's going to put us in really great shape to be in, to be in charge of, or be in a really good shape when you come to the next investment round. It's like, well, you don't want to be going out and doing a rescue round. You want to be going out there with a great news story, and you're able to kind of better manage that kind of direction that company's going to go, because you've got this success to build on. I personally see it as UK and US. I think the US is a market that's super exciting for us. Two of our biggest 3 customers are out in America, and we haven't got that many out there. So it's like it's a massive high proportion. So that's an exciting area for us, and I think we'd be looking in the next 12 months to get feet on the ground out in the States somewhere to be able to support and then look to grow that part of the company. E-commerce generally, I think we need to build our brand. We haven't had a huge amount of money to invest in marketing, but our tech and the customers' case studies and things, it's now at a point where we should be shouting about it. We should be on the list of 4 or 5 platforms that people are coming to speak to. So that's a big focus, to make sure that we get that brand and that buzz around the company. Beyond that, I would say, like any tech company has to have an eye on what's going on in technology. So our roadmap is crucial. We've got a lot of our dev team working really closely with AI. We're deploying AI across the company now to support the business and being able to function quicker and more efficiently. And I guess making sure we're on top of all of that and making sure that we're future-proofing the stack is important as well, because nobody's going to want to invest in something if it's got a 2-year lifespan, right? So I guess keeping an eye on industry trends and making sure that the good thing is, like I said, we've got a kind of a tech wizard behind us, and he's more than across what's going on in the world of technology. So making sure the roadmap's exciting and innovative is really important.
Nice. Well, it sounds like there's plenty that you're going to be getting on with. So some exciting times ahead, certainly over the and some busy times ahead as well over the next sort of 12 months. So I'm looking forward to seeing more in terms of the shape of Shopblocks, where you get to, looking at some of those emerging markets. I say emerging markets; they're emerging for you in terms of your customer base, and really sort of being able to grow out and build. So exciting times.
Definitely. I'm heading over to Chicago for an event on Sunday. So I'm meeting up with a partner out there, and then I've got a couple of prospect meetings, and then I'm at a B2B online Chicago event, which is great. Like we're going to have a look and see if it's somewhere we would want to exhibit. Events are a funny thing, like identifying ones where there's like a good mix of people that you're going to get some real tangible benefits at the end of it. Is important. I'd love to get to the point where we're big enough that we've just got a budget just to kind of do it and not worry about the ROI, but we're not quite there yet. So I'm out there next week, kind of looking at that, and that's another chance actually to kind of get in amongst some of the manufacturers, the distributors, the wholesalers, these big businesses that we think we're really well suited to support. And I'm going to be able to meet lots of them and hang out at hotel lobbies and stuff, trying to get to know people while we're out there. So it's a good opportunity just to kind of test that as well, because that's one of the things that I've found quite, like I think it was October or September last year, I was invited to Toshiba's annual conference in Las Vegas. So it was at the Bellagio, and they had on like the first day, their president stood up, Larry, and in the ballroom at the Bellagio with like 2,000 people, and for 40 minutes he presented Shopblocks to his customer base.
Nice.
And that was like one of those moments when you're in it and you kind of struggle to see the wood for the trees a little bit. That was one of those kind of like, okay, we've come a long way, like going from like scrappy startup, spitting sawdust, where we were day one, to then sit there and see that happen. It's like, okay, this tech is landing. And I guess for me now, it's like, well, that's cool. We've landed there, but now can we go and repeat that? Can we now start to get into multiple of those types of businesses? And that's what I'll be trying to identify while I'm away in the next week.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you so much for giving up your time and coming on the show today. Some really useful insights, certainly around the way that you do things and have done things to build the business. So lots of stuff that people are gonna learn from. So yeah, look, thank you very much again for coming on, and looking forward to seeing more growth and success from Shopblocks.
Thanks, Rupert. Thanks for having me.